So Erden Eruc, am I saying that right? Eruc.
Eruç.
Eruç. Erden Eruc.
There you go.
Like Air Jordan. Erden. Okay. He's a local man. Not sure where you live. You can tell us that. Didn't find that information, but born in Turkey, and has so many awards here. He's educated in Turkey, had a degree in engineering mechanics and an MBA. He also had the same degree in Ohio. So he's had a lot of schooling. He's worked on a lot of technical projects, but at 41, he left the corporate office and began to pursue his outdoor adventures. And he has done some amazing adventures. He has so many awards here. He has, I think, 10 Guinness Book of World Record. He holds 10 records.
14.
He's I can't even read all these. There are so many. It's very impressive. We are so interested in and grateful that you can join us. And I hope that you can tell us more about the records and the what you're doing for the ocean recovery and right now, better than I can, because I have 5 pages of introduction for you. So Erden,
don't bother, please. I'll tell you all about it.
Okay, take it over, Erden. Thank you.
Save you all the trouble. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to join you all here. I'm going to share my screen now. Here we go. So, my name is Erden Eruc. My website is, as you can see, erdeneruc.com, and I'm the president of the nonprofit 501c3 Around and Over. I'm also known as a Chief Exploration Officer. I made up that title. I don't get paid, so I have that luxury. I am going to launch from San Francisco on Earth Day, April 22nd, or soon thereafter, weather permitting, with the goal of reaching Hong Kong. Right now, I'm researching where I should make landfall, really, trying to come up with the scenarios. This also is relying on visa limitations that I have. China is not giving me a visa right now. It is a big problem. I'm going to use an ocean rowing boat. This is a 24-foot purpose-designed vessel that is self-bailing, self-righting, and cabin in the back is where I sleep. Solar panels on top have been enlarged, and there are more solar panels that are going to be added on this boat. Right now, we're working on all that, so I will have more than double the production capacity. My routes will not stop at China once I get there. Once I reach mainland Asia, I will bicycle to Tibet and attempt climbing Everest, and then carry on toward Elbrus on the border of Georgia and Russia. Then work my way to South America to climb Aconcagua. So these are the 3 summits that remain on my 6 summits project. And I'll tell you about those now. You may say, well, have you done anything like that before? That's a typical reaction that I get from folks who haven't Googled me. I actually did a journey around the world. I will be using just the same, a bicycle on land. All of this came to me in 1997 when I was sitting in a software development lab in Silver Spring, Maryland. And this was a special map on the wall with Pacific in the middle, America's on the right. I would stand in front of this thing between coding sessions and trace my finger over to Turkey, where I'm from. And I even gave it a name, Journey Home. And then it became a quiet obsession. I had to figure out how to do this. I assumed a problem-solving mode, and every detail was a problem to be solved. So I was comfortable in that as an engineer. I'm wired that way. And this evolved into a circumnavigation. idea. So once I reach Turkey, I shouldn't stop there. I should get back to where I started. So a circumnavigation, to be precise, is a journey that starts and ends at the same place and generally travels in the same direction around the world. And also includes one pair of antipodal points along the way. These are points that are diametrically opposite of each other, like the North Pole and the South Pole. And when you do that, then you spend, by definition, comparable distances, cover comparable distances on opposing hemispheres. And by necessity, you cross the equator at least twice, so forth. I wanted to share this experience, especially with children, and serve society in the process. So we set up the nonprofit around and over to educate and inspire children, especially. I'm having trouble with my presentation. Some of the slides may be hidden or something. That's skipping, I think. Let me regroup. So the books that I read gave me a lot of ideas. And one of the books I read about similar journeys was about the Swedish adventurer Göran Kropp. He had bicycled from Sweden to Nepal in 1986 to climb Everest. He was famous for that. And he came to Seattle in the summer of 2001 for a presentation. After that, when we went climbing together for the first time, September of 2002 in Eastern Washington in Vantage, he fell and he died, and that became a turning point for me. Before I took off on my journey, I went to his funeral in November that same year. On the way back from his funeral in Stockholm, I drew the world map on a piece of paper. I marked the highest summit on each continent, and I said, I'm going to reach these by human power. So the Six Summits Project was born in memory of Göran. Staying true to my goals, I said, I'm going to serve society. Therefore, we're going to set up a nonprofit. The goal will be to educate, and based on lessons learned from these journeys, it's going to create a framework for us, for others to join, and will inspire children along the way and create resources for developing communities to help in their education. So we picked partners in Africa and in Turkey to get cash in these communities and fundraising for them. My human-powered circumnavigation started in 2007 from Bodega Bay and carried on westbound, reached Australia. I climbed Kosciuszko there and Kilimanjaro in Africa before I returned back to Bodega Bay 5 years, 11 days later. The journey took place between 2007 and 2012. In 2003, just after Göran's accident, I had bicycled up to Alaska to climb Mount McKinley. So 3 of the 6 summits were done, and now I was looking at Everest, Elbrus, and Aconcagua to go climb. I skipped those due to the financial crisis in 2008, 2010, making sponsorships very difficult to come by. So I just rushed for the finish line and skipped these 3 summits. One of the lessons that I learned along the way was, like these children in Canada, in the shallow elementary school, these are 4th graders. They were asking me, aren't you afraid? I asked them, what should I be afraid of? And then they told me their own fears. So everybody sees what I do through their own mind's eye. Their experience determines what they see and what I do. And I told them, no, they told me bears. I said, bears are hibernating. They asked, how about trucks? I said, they changed lanes. How about loneliness? I got you. So basically, I tried to give them the message that fears are what create uncertainty and doubts, and we should seek knowledge and face fear to overcome it. And the journey was received well all around the world. So if you look at the map, flat map, it's fine. But if you look at the globe on Google Earth, it bounces from one edge of the globe to the other. This is the path across the Indian Ocean from Australia to Africa. And then this is the path across the South Atlantic from Namibia to Venezuela. And then 69 days later, after having left Venezuela, I reached Louisiana shores. These are immense distances. And that green line is the average of my route. Using least squares method, I was able to fit a great circle over that on average. In addition to a rowboat and bicycle, I also used sea kayak along the shores of these continents. I had to walk north to south across Papua New Guinea. On two deep river mouths, I had to use a traditional dugout canoe in Papua New Guinea to keep moving. I never had to swim during this journey. So everything had to be done by human power and under my own power. I became an accidental scientist along the way. I documented this species of seagull. It's a laughing gull that was recorded 3,000 nautical miles offshore. Their normal roaming grounds are Baja and western shores of Mexico. So this guy was definitely blown away from shore and came and picked some fish around my boat. The seas showed me all moods. Sometimes aggressive, sometimes benign. And I had to keep myself functioning as well as my vessel in order so that I could carry on. When things broke, I repaired them. I had to be prepared with the tools to repair it, of course. When I could not repair things, I had to have replacement parts. If I didn't have it, I had to do without. I had limited options out there. Self-reliance was the key. When I injured my neck in one episode, I had to make a makeshift neck brace and rest my neck for about 10 days. With the neck bent over like this, rowing was not that easy, you could imagine. So by making that choice of leaving comforts behind and leaving the sail behind, leaving the engine behind, and reducing my options, I have actually had taken on a big challenge. And the oceans will be there when we are gone. They gain meaning by the effort that we put into any activity. So oceans gain meaning with the sweat equity that I put against it. And everybody understands that. When I reached Papua New Guinea waters, the villagers came out to celebrate. They were curious, who's this guy in a yellow rowboat? Later, they told me that the grandmothers in the hills all knew about this, and they have a verbal storytelling custom there, which passes knowledge from generation to generation. So I made it into their stories now as the white man that came with a yellow rowboat. That's my description there. They met me, they put me in front of their children and did part of the beach walking with me for about 5 days to reach a spot where I could relaunch by kayak. By the time I came to Cameron, Louisiana, having left Venezuela 69 days earlier, I had spent 844 days of my life alone on that rowboat. My total career total, including two-person crossings, is 934 right now, and that'll advance as soon as I launch. Nancy was able to keep up with me on a tandem bicycle on the last day of my bicycling to the finish line at Bodega Bay in 2012. When I finished, there was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. There's relief on my face, and there's pride in hers. The journey brought 14 Guinness World Records to me. This is with Craig Glenday, the chief editor of Guinness Book of World Records in London, handing me 4 of those. And 8 of those are hanging on my hallway at home now. I need either a longer hallway or a second row of display to put everything up. But this is fun stuff. Explorers Club, I'm a member of them, gave me a citation of merit in their annual dinner in 2013. This is James Cameron, the famous director who had descended to the second deep of Marianas Trench that year, who received a medal. At the very big left is Don Walsh, who was the first person to have descended into the first deep of Marianas Trench. There are 3 deeps to it. With the Swedish man, the Swiss man, Picard, in the Batiscaf Trieste. So the first person to descend into the Marianas was giving the second person to descend into the Marianas Trench, James Cameron, his award. Senator John Glang got a Lifetime Achievement Award during that annual dinner. It was a wonderful, proud moment. Since then, I have obtained a captain's license. I'm a 50-ton master with sailing endorsement. I do yacht deliveries. I race on big boats. This is our TP52 that races around Seattle. And I make a living on the water. I'm a sailing instructor as well, and I play on the water. So the health of our oceans is a big concern to me. So our nonprofit goals remain to educate and inspire through Around and Over. Ocean Recovery Alliance has selected me as an ambassador to them. They are concerned about the plastics in our oceans and suggest ways to mitigate and reduce that problem. Five Gyres similarly focuses on plastics in our oceans, and Ocean Voyages Institute actually goes out and collects these drift nets and the ghost nets and such. There are many other organizations, but I cannot reach all of them at once. None of the plastic that is packaging or other goes into the ocean from my rowboat. And I encounter a lot of debris on the water. The ones that become brittle with wave action and UV exposure actually break down and sink or are not as obviously visible. Some of them have been at sea for a long time, as you can see on the right, and that black fender, it is got growth around it. When I try to fish, often I catch garbage. I catch netting, pieces of debris. This green turtle that came to visit my rowboat would not be able to tell the difference between a jellyfish in the jar on the right and clear plastic that it might encounter in the water. And they eat the stuff, and then their digestive tract gets filled with the plastic. They cannot pass it, they cannot digest it, so they starve to death. It's not a good way to go. Albatross, when they roam the oceans for 10 days, 2 weeks, and then return to roost, they often come back with plastic debris in their guts, and they regurgitate this. Normally, they should be bringing back pre-digested fish or jellyfish, whatever else they normally should eat, and then that pre-digested food called bolus is regurgitated to feed the chicks. And if they regurgitate plastic, the chick gets it, chick dies. If the adult cannot regurgitate it, it dies. The remaining adult has to leave the roost, which leaves the nest cold. Either the egg doesn't hatch or the chick dies. So there's a big downward pressure on the albatross population on places like Midway Island. If you go to Albatross, the film by Chris Jordan, you will see a very tragic story of the albatross and how they are being affected by our activity, human activity. Every year, 8 million tons of plastic reaches our oceans, and that's at the pace of one garbage truck, dump truck per minute. This has to stop. Every day, we go through 500 million straws and 1 million plastic bags per minute just in the United States. This kid sitting in the swamp of plastic debris at a river mouth in Southeast Asia somewhere is picking straws only because there's value attached to it. Everything else is remaining out there. Whenever big rains come, the continent just disgorges itself and clears its arteries. These rivers come and dump this plastic out onto the beaches, and such is life in most places. Every windward shore that I visited, and this includes far northeastern Queensland, where I kayaked, and the shores around the east side of South Africa, around Durban, where I went sailing, look like this. These are common by now, and it's not just the unsightly appearance of this, it is also that the debris turns this sand into concrete-like consistency. When a sea turtle comes in to lay eggs, in using its back paddles, its own flesh, it has to dig through this garbage to be able to make itself a nest so it can lay its eggs. There's just problem on every level with this kind of debris. And there's often the deflection. Yeah, well, most plastic comes from China, or most emissions come from China. It's the favorite go-to excuse, but this is Ocean Shores, July 5th. We're not any better. And these are all the masks because of COVID. And masks are just one of the waste products of this pandemic. Now we got PPEs, we got all the vials and everything else that goes with such an operation. And this garbage is finding its way into our oceans. So you've heard this before. By 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the world's oceans. We are already overfishing anyway, so good luck finding any fish soon enough. Everything is being packaged in plastic, and there is just 26% of plastic is packaging. So there are so many applications to plastics, and only 72% of that packaging is 28% of that packaging is recovered. So the plastic production is about just over 300 million tons every year, and it's going up annually, and only 10% of that is recycled. It hasn't helped that fracking and other methods have made oil and gas cheaper, so that using raw materials is cheaper for production than recycling. So there's a cost to recapture all that plastic and reapply it. So people just go for virgin material and move on for sake of profits. What we don't like to see around us, not in my backyard, attitude comes in. Instead of burying it in our backyard or burning it in our environment, we tend to ship it away, out of sight, out of mind. So China was receiving a lot of this for a long while, until 2011. In that time period, 50% of the plastic was going to China, and then China said no more plastics. We're not going to accept anymore. We have enough of our own problem. So the flow diverted to other places like Indonesia. It just more than doubled by 2014. When this garbage arrives at these far off shores, the school-age children or women are often in this stuff, trying to sort what's useful out of them. And what is not useful, which is majority of this garbage, then either is burned or buried or tossed into the ocean. That's why there are so much debris reaching the oceans from those countries. And 40% of this global trash is being burned, and that leads to cancer and other problems. We have single-use plastics. We're all guilty of this. Whenever we pick up a plastic bag or a cup of coffee or water bottle, we're creating a problem. Just polystyrene is just one of these categories. Your coffee cup or your party cup, doesn't matter, is polystyrene, and less than 2% of that is recycled. It is just not sustainable. And one way to do this is major behavior modification. We carry our own bottle, our own cup, our own straw, and try to make a difference. How do we get that message out? Ocean Recovery Alliance has an app in use right now, Global Alert, and that empowers everyone to add a trash site. If you go to a beach, if you go to a waterfront, somehow riverfront or a lakefront, and see a beach strewn with plastic debris, you can mark it, and then you can specify what type of trash, what quantity of trash, and how much help is needed. And then the local Rotary Club or the local sailing club or the local municipality, whoever the stakeholders around there, can view the trash sites and go organize a cleanup crew that Sunday, who each arrive with 2 trash bags and just walk down the beach and clean it up before it has a chance to go back into the ocean. So clearly, the more this is used, the more successful it will get. Another project to address this problem is to help companies and organizations, this could be stadiums also, any facility, to manage their plastic use. So unless we measure, we cannot manage, right? So they go in as in the plastic disclosure project, they get a snapshot, a benchmark of what the plastic use is, and then measures are taken to reduce that use. 6 months later, they compare and they have a result, and they can advertise that as a sustainable company, as a environmentally conscious company. Adidas, for example, has these shoes that they are producing. They are made strictly out of plastics recovered from the oceans, the Ultra Boost DNA shoes. That's one model that they have, and they're making an effort. And Ocean Voyages Institute is a supplier to Adidas for this kind of stuff. And they give sailors and racers and everyone who's on the ocean beacons to tag ghost nets that they may encounter. And then every summer they go and fetch these debris out of the ocean. Just this summer, they brought 100 tons of debris back. Ocean Recovery Alliance has a pilot program in Costa Rica where they take all this dirty plastic. It doesn't have to be sorted, it doesn't have to be washed, nothing. With minor processing, they turn that into aggregate to be added into cement. So if you, just like you add gravel or sand, you add 10% of this processed plastic into the cinder block, for example, you get that plastic out of circulation. So to represent what's going on, these 10 bottles can be reduced into that handful of aggregate at the bottom to be added into this one cinder block. So that's the kind of ratio that you get. We're not even addressing microplastics here. As plastics get into the oceans, they break down, they break into smaller parts. They find their way into the oceans as raw material, as pellets and flakes out of containers that fall into the oceans. You've got microbeads and scrubs and detergents. You've got tire dust. Every single time you wash a pile jacket, 250,000 microfibers are sent into the down the drain. We have to capture all of this. One solution is this coral ball thing that grabs microfibers out of the laundry, and you can reduce your microfiber discharge by about 30% using this device. We have to have filters and other solutions added to this. Microbeads are in facial scrubs. Obama signed Microbead-Free Waters Act in 2015. Was that canceled in the last administration? It was fashionable. I don't know. We need these kinds of measures. Tire dust that rubs off the tires onto roadways, gets washed into the storm drains, finds its way into the Puget Sound, for example, in our area, and that affects the Chinook salmon, which is the food source for the resident orcas that we have. And the chemicals in the tire production affect the salmon's health, and then basically they can no longer reproduce and their numbers dwindle, orcas suffer. All this plastic are attractants, the persistent organic pollutants attached to these, and then they find their way into our system and they mess up our metabolism. Persistent organic pollutants are chemicals like DDT and PCB. DDT has been banned in the US though, not everywhere. And when these chemicals find their way from up the food chain, we are the apex predator and it ends up with us. And then we wonder why we're getting so much cancer cases. Of course, there's cigarette butts that find their way. And it's just a huge problem. As humans, we have to become stewards of our planet. And at this point, unfortunately, we're acting like pests killing its host. The major problem that we never talk about is that in 1900, we were 1.6 billion. We are now about 8 billion. We will be 10 billion by 2050. We have already reached the carrying capacity of this Earth. And colonizing Mars and living in space are fantasies at this point. It will not happen fast enough to lift us off this rock. So we have to make choices. We have to change our ways and rethink our choices. We cannot continue using single use. We have to reduce our consumption. We have to be responsible citizens of this Earth. And recycling is really the last option out of all these R's that I listed on the left. So, like one polio case at a time, Rotary got rid of the polio problem on this Earth. I have to reach out one student at a time, one presentation at a time, and convert everyone into stewards of this Earth. We will survive. I noted all the websites that I mentioned on the right. You can follow me on erdeneruc.com. And this is my contact information should you wish to get a hold of me. And I thank you for all this time and your patience.
Erden, I have a question for you.
Of course.
If we wanted to donate to your mission, what's the best way to do that? If
you go to erdeneruc.com.
That's it.
Right on the homepage, it says donate in the corner. It says take action. It gives you different ways of donating. So we have now around and over the 501c3 that can handle donations, facilitate this, and or GoFundMe or Facebook campaigns are also active right now. All of those feed into Around and Over, and they're all tax deductible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erden. Very nice presentation. Very kind of scary, pretty scary what's going on with in our oceans.
It's not a trivial problem.
Yeah. Any questions for Erden?
I just want to make one comment that here at Heron's Key, all of the carpets are made with recycled fishing nets.
Yeah, that's very good.
Collected fishing nets from wherever and recycled them into carpet.
I have a question.
It can be done.
We have to have the intentions and persistence to stay on top of it and catch this stuff before they reach the ocean. So there are plenty of solutions trying to, ocean cleanup project, for example, is one that takes out this boom trying to capture surface floating debris. They have varying degrees of success. There are dams that are being set on river mouths trying to capture debris that comes down the rivers. It really comes down to not throwing it into the rivers, not throwing it into the environment, and catching it at the source, really.
Erden, I have a question for you too.
Of course.
You've raised money, obviously, for your journey, but what does it cost for you to do this trek that you're just about to start?
The circumnavigation that I did around the world turned out to be a $500,000 project, and half of that came out of our personal budget, for example. Despite that, we raised about $120,000 in cash and delivered it to educational projects through the nonprofit. The upcoming journey to mainland Asia and beyond has a budget of preliminary budget of $229,000 right now. And yeah, the effort continues. By the time I reach Asia, I'm hoping that there will be more visibility, and 6 more Guinness World Records later, I might get lucky.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, were you able to watch that documentary, Chasing Coral? I mentioned to you, where you it's a Netflix documentary about chasing coral, and it gets into the
Chasing coral.
Coral,
Yes.
yeah. Make a note of that.
Not.
It talks a little bit too about the ocean and the pollution of the ocean.
Yes.
Anyway, interesting documentary. And I understand you may have a documentary in the works at the end of this.
We are right now waiting on a documentary to be concluded and wrapped up about the first circumnavigation. And I will be capturing footage and images and stories as I cross and carry on, which will become a second circumnavigation if I have my way. Yeah, always I'm trying to capture what's being done, with the intentions of sharing.
So Erden, how long will it take you to navigate the globe around the world?
So I hope to make landfall in March of 2002 across the Pacific, on the other side of the Pacific. Then in post-monsoon season, which is fall of 2022, I should climb or at least attempt Everest. And then in 2023, I will pass through Turkey, having climbed Elbrus, and then I will carry on to Portugal that summer. And that fall, 2023, I should launch from Portugal for South America, Brazil or Guianas, depending on the winds. Then I haven't made any plans beyond that. So I will have to find the right window to climb Aconcagua, then head back north. So sometime in 2024, probably I would be finished. It would be a 3-year effort, which would actually become the fastest circumnavigation by human power. I currently hold the record by 5 years, 11 days. So I might break my own record.
I have one question for you also, Erden. As a Rotary Club, we have a lot of people that would, and we have a vast shoreline here.
Yes.
I think we have a lot of interest in helping to clean the shoreline. Where would you suggest we pursue to be able to do that?
I think I can provide sources, certainly. We can all look at on smartphones, go get this global alert and take a look at the app. And that's one way to start it. Basically, it empowers organizations and individuals to mark debris sites and then go clean them up.
Okay.
And Ocean Recovery Alliance would be a good place to go. Clearly, I'm an ambassador for them, so I'm biased. There is 5gyres.org. Number 5 gyres, GYRES.org. It's listed on the screen right here. And these are 2 organizations that are spending their time trying to raise awareness about plastics problem.
Thank you.
That's a good start.
So the real question is, where does the garbage go once we pick it up? Does it go back into the cycle?
I mean, how did it get there initially? So we said recycling is the last option, and recycling is not really recycling either. We either bury it or burn it and get it out of our site, or ship it off somewhere else, and it's no longer being taken. We went through this. So the bottom line has to be using alternative materials, reducing consumption, reusing, repurposing, repairing, refurbishing, basically trying to make these last longer so we don't consume as much of it. And beyond that, I am not optimistic at this point. I mean, we do all we can to get the message out, but good luck.
Okay, one more question.
Yes.
Carol, who?
Yes. When you are circumnavigating and so on, where do you stay? Do you have hotels? Do you have friends where you're able to just stay for several days or weeks, or where do you stay?
It's a variety of all of the above. I have my own tent. I can tent most of the time as appropriate, and then of course I need a shower and a laundry every now and then, so pulling into a hostel is cheaper than a hotel, a guest house is what I had to ask for in Africa, for example. If I asked for a hotel, they would send me where the tourists go, and that would cost me an arm and a leg. If I asked for a guest house, they would send me to where they would go themselves. So, so I need to then pay attention to the local customs and local expressions to make sure that I find the cheaper options. I do get offered place to stay. And whenever I stop for a long time anywhere, all the people I need show up. The journey provides. And so I do get invited into places and to people's homes. Churches are a great place, you know, religious organizations. You can go ask anyone, would I be safe in your yard? Would you allow me? And they said, let me set up tent in the corner, invite me for tea or coffee or meal every now and then. So yeah, I engage all of the above.
Erden, thank you very much for your talk. I'm quite sure there are many more questions, but we are running out of time. Thank you so much.